like as we get started like in the podcast, I know we've kind of been talking for a few minutes. Where literally it's was December 28th, end of the year in Ohio, and we're like, I'm in shorts and a light
Right.
jacket, and we're like in the middle. We're like here on
We're on a lake.
we're on a lake, and we just spent a couple hours mountain biking, which was really cool. So Tucker, I'm glad that one, you're down to do a ride, two, come back on the podcast, and three, just fucking have a conversation. I know we have a little technical difficulty where we're scrapping audio with with our iPhones, but we're still making it happen.
Hey,
So I
if it
appreciate
works,
you.
it works.
So I appreciate you. What'd you think about the ride?
Man, that was honestly like the funnest thing I've done all year, maybe. I've been needing something like that. I think I kind of forget like how important it is to like go out and actually just do fun stuff and hang out with people and like do things that aren't work. Because I think of my work as fun, so it's like, all right, I don't need to go have fun. Like it's like, oh, I feel like I love what I do. So like I don't ever really. I try to avoid stuff like this. It seems like, or at least people don't really make it that easy for me to do it. So I typically just wouldn't. So having the invitation to come out here, I was super excited about it, and yeah, it just got better and better as it went on. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Like it's cool. It's been interesting because I at first when I had the idea of like taking people out on like mountain bike rides and doing all that, I was unsure if people would entertain the idea or like even be interested in like trying it out. Like some people think mountain bike is like this super hard thing, which it kind of is, but it doesn't have to be. And having done a few episodes already, I'm like, okay, how can I make this easy and enjoyable for whoever's coming on, so they can have a good experience. So, whether that's providing a bike, helmet, kind of going through the run through, making it easy, taking breaks, whatever it is, like I'm starting to kind of flesh that out, and it's been really fun because yeah, you just have a good time. Like I really love doing this. So like I would be doing this by myself anyways.
Right.
So just being able to kind of bring somebody along and share that experience with them is cool. So like you crushed it, bro. Like I wasn't really sure. Like I know you mentioned like, you like biked and done stuff before, but like, yeah, man, this trail is not necessarily like a cake and a walk in a park, but we did it. It was, weather conditions were not ideal, but like the guy fucking crushed it. I'm glad you got some cool clips too.
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't come out here when it was 25 degrees. Although I do think it would have still been a great time. I think that it would have been less like easy to be out on the trail, or yeah, like I don't know. I think if it would have been really cold, it would have been like that cold factor of like, oh, it's chilly out here. Like maybe we should hurry up.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. Like I think like the only difference is with it being so cold, the ground would be a lot firmer.
So we'd be kind of like ripping a little harder.
Yeah, so we definitely would be riding a lot faster, and we wouldn't probably stop as much. And I think that not stopping would then make our bodies hot. We'll definitely be warmer, like more tired because we're like pushing or whatever. So it still would have been brutal. I think the hardest part would have been what we're doing right now, like sitting down and talking. That would have been terrible. Like it's funny though because we were planning on doing that when it was like, I think it was supposed to be like 20 degrees.
Really cool.
I was packing like hand warmers and like feet warmers. Like I was literally gonna have all that, and then we have like this like little portable gas like heater.
Just a little stove.
Yeah, I was like a little gas heater. I was gonna like have that little setup. So I think we're gonna be comfortable. But regardless, I'm glad you made it out, and the weather was perfect. Like one of the things that's become like a staple now for me at the end of the year is going out on some kind of ride, whether it's like a road ride or on the mountain bike trails. It's become a thing now. Like in the end of the year, like you would think that it's winter, that you can't like ride bikes or do any like outdoor activities anymore because it's fucking cold. But it's like over the last few years since I've gotten into this, it's been just a staple now. So I'm excited to share that with you.
Well, yeah, I appreciate it. It's fun to explore new things that I've never really done, and I definitely loved it. And like at the beginning of the ride, I felt really kind of nervous. Like I had never really done it. Like I was like, okay, like this could end badly. Like big hills, obviously a little scary, narrow things scary, sliding off the bike scary. And like I was riding like that at the beginning, but at the end of the ride, I literally felt like I could like take on some jumps. Like I gain confidence very, very quickly in that. So it makes me excited to maybe go do that a lot more.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely get you out there again and like even ride some different trails. Or you like I think riding this one you'd be able to compare the difference. Like oh yeah, now especially when you ride somewhere for the first time, you're kind of riding like that. Even for me, it was a little bit different because I was riding like a different bike than what I'm used to.
Right.
And the conditions were a lot different.
Really know your limits or like what's gonna happen.
It's weird because like even something like with a bike, you would think that you could just jump on it and like ride and it won't be a difference, but like I felt like very different. Where if I was riding my bike, like I would definitely be like, oh yeah,
I could tell even just from me riding my bike to you riding that bike that like yours was spinning on stuff that mine would just easily.
Yeah. You were like there's some stuff where I'm like, oh, it's kind of sketchy, and you're just like, oh.
Yep. Right.
So it was cool. I'm glad we did it. It's been this new format of the podcast. This has been like the most enjoyable part. Like all the technical stuff aside, and like I mainly just wanted to do this format so I can just have conversations with people, have fun riding, doing something cool, something different, and just have a conversation. So even now, like, we're having problems with the mics and we're fucking recording on our phones. Like, I don't care. Like, I just want to chop it up with you. And
it seems like for regular podcasting, the result of the podcast is the goal. Like, it's like, okay, we're producing this podcast, and it's like, okay, the goal is to like let other people hear this conversation. But this feels like the point of this seems like a little bit more for like us.
Yeah, for sure. It's
like,
100% selfish.
Yeah, and but like honestly, at the end of the day, like podcasts are like annoying because it's like, okay, everyone's just trying to like teach someone else something, but like you're not actually adding any value because you're just talking about stuff. But this, like, it's like, even if it is just for us and like this experience is like nobody else gets to experience it, like the excitement and like what comes from this, I feel like will rub off on people a lot more, and it kind of like inspires people just to go do stuff, like just to like everyone's gone and made a podcast sitting down in a room. Like I feel like I've seen 100 of those, or I've at least produced hundreds of them. And like I have no interest in watching them because it's like, okay, I've seen this so many times, and it's like you're not really adding a fresh perspective, even if you're talking about something really cool. Like I'm sick of seeing it, and I'm just gonna skip it.
Yeah, so like that 100% is kind of like the goal. And that was one of the reasons why I stopped the podcast for so long, and then kind of have this new angle and new format, and it's been fun. Like I said, it's one, I love being out on the bikes, out on the trail, and then being able to just share that with somebody is cool. And yeah, even like you said, you had a fucking blast. Like towards the end, you started busting out the phone, you record, oh hey man, let me record you, or hey, record me. Like that, I feel like that's what I want to get out of it. And it kind of even like just lends to like the theme of the podcast even before that, right? Because I feel like when I first started the podcast, it had that same similar format that everybody that you see everywhere. But the reason I started it was just to have conversations with people and try to get a different perspective on how people handle their creative block, and how they go about doing their creative work, and and everything in between. That you can still do that. For me, cycling has been an outlet to kind of overcome and kind of break away or meditate from the everyday norm, my work life, everything, that I literally go out on a ride and I just forget about everything. And then when I come back to, I guess back to real life, like I am like recalibrated. Like I have really no other way to like put it other than I literally just recalibrating, because when you're out on the trail, you're not thinking about whatever problems, challenges, issues, etc. Because you literally have to just focus on what's out in front of you, whether it's a feature or a hill, whatever it is. Like you gotta, you don't have time to think about anything else.
Right. You can't be like, oh, like what's going on later today? Like while you're like daydreaming on a mountain bike.
You can't do that. But I feel like they're kind of something we talked about on during the ride was like having hobbies allows you to kind of do that. And like I think like having hobbies is important. Like not only if you're creative, but just anybody in general, that it allows you to kind of I think it's engrossing yourself in something. It's like a form of it literally is meditation, right? Like you're kind of like locking into something that you're focusing your energy onto something, and whether it's making something, doing something, whatever it is. Like for me, cycling does that. Like I love like being able to get out on a bike and like just kind of forget about things. And then there's not only that aspect, but there's so many like other like health benefits that you get from it, from improving fitness, you're exercising, being active. Yeah, bro, like it's starting to get a little bit cold, but like I'm still like I feel good, bro. Like I'm ready for
breathing well. Like
Yeah,
I've been not exercising a lot, so this is good.
was it
like I guess physically more of a challenge that you were expecting.
A little bit. It wasn't like to the point where it was like, oh, like this is hard, but it was like I didn't really expect. Like I don't know. I always think of mountain biking. I'm like, okay, I'll just throw it in a low gear and it's really easy. But when you're going up those hills in a low gear, like even though you're so slowly, like you're like, it's so hard to keep pushing.
Yeah.
And like when you get to the very top of the hill, you're like, I don't know if I could do it. Like, and then you keep pushing and then like, all right, and then you got to go and like hang out and ride down the hill.
I liked that there were some like technical sections. I was like, hey, watch out for this, blah blah blah, whatever, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Like it's awesome to see. Like I'm always kind of hesitant if I'm not sure of like the person's like skill level, or if they if they tell me like, yeah, I go mountain biking all the time, like I wouldn't care. But like I'm like, okay, because you can't get hurt if you're not
For
careful.
sure, yeah.
But I feel like even today we had some like sketchy moments where we're like sliding out, or we were a little bit exposed, and it's like, oh, it's kind of slippery here.
It's kind of the fun.
Funnest part of it. It's like the part where you're like, oh God, like, oh, that was crazy.
I wonder if that's what makes it like, what makes you kind of feel refreshed, because like your adrenaline's just
Well, that's what
your
it is,
system's
yeah.
just getting shocked that you're like, oh fuck.
It's like
I feel like I like work so hard that I always feel like I'm like too tired to do anything, but resting doesn't help me. Like it's like I'm like always working and then I come home and I feel exhausted and I feel like I'm like oh, like I just want to like I don't even know. Like I just like, and then I end up just sitting on my phone for 4 hours at night and like wasting my entire night. But the reason I feel like that is because I'm not doing enough stuff like this, and it's because I'm not like actually like living enough. And then like I'll just like kind of get stagnant, and then like you don't get excited to do anything. But like when you do stuff like this, it's exciting to do, but also you get more excited to like go rest after this. Like if you actually push yourself really hard, like that rest is so much more gratifying because you've actually done something hard. And then also like it makes chilling easier. Like I was bad at chilling because I'm like, I just feel like I should be doing something. But like if you just go and like do something that's like, even if it's unwork related, like your body feels like it's accomplished something today, and like you could just, so maybe that's why you're sleeping better.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I think like the more I ride, like especially like on long rides, like I sleep like a baby. Like
Right. At the end of the day, like, and you get that feeling at the end of the day. It's similar to like going to the gym or something where you feel really accomplished. And like, it's like not even like it's a mental and it's like a physical thing. It's like, I feel really like accomplished. Like I did something good with my body, and I feel like I like had a nice little reset in my head.
what do you do?
I mean, so do you just mostly literally just work? Like you like do like, how do you unwind, or whenever, or like what do you do whenever you're not working?
I kind of like, I used to do pottery a lot more, and I used to go to the gym all the time, and that would be like my unwind. And I've really kind of stopped doing that a lot. And now I just feel like I'm so busy all the time. And even if it's not like just actual work stuff, it's like personal obligations, like just going and having dinner with people or doing stuff like that, that I've been like restless this year, and I haven't been good at actually relaxing. Like I'm so bad at relaxing because I feel like I should always be doing something.
Right.
But I also don't feel like I'm ever actually getting very much done. So like I'm kind of stuck in this perpetual loop of like being just like, I don't know, operating in like this cloud. So like I try to relax by like laying down or like watching TV, but I'm like, that's not relaxing for me really. And I just get distracted and stay on my phone, and then like it ends up just being like a terrible night. Like I don't feel very good about that.
Do you feel like it affects like your work?
100%. Like if I'm not actually able to relax, I'm not actually able to work during the day, and then I just overthink everything, and I get very unproductive. And it's like I have all this stuff I want to do, and I like write all the kinds of lists and stuff. I'm very good at making lists of to-do lists, and then like checking one of them off during the day when I could have checked 5, because I just kind of get like overwhelmed and like, oh, I really just don't want to sit here and do this edit. So I'm just gonna like go waste time doing something else, and then like by the time it's like 12 o'clock at night, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go to bed, and then I like sleep in a little bit. So I've had like a very unhealthy kind of lifestyle recently. And I think this is honestly like exactly what I needed to maybe jolt me back into doing something a little bit differently.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Like I'm grateful that that's like something you're able to take away, because that is exactly what it does for me, and then that's what's allowed me to continue to, continue to do it, because otherwise on days when I don't, like my body literally feels like sluggish, tired. Like, yeah, I just get restless. I'm I like honestly, like I even dare to say that like I low key get like irritable sometimes, where like it's yeah, like I'll just like I need to fucking go do something.
You need
with
like
it.
an outlet. Yeah, you need somewhere to like put your energy.
Whether it's like going out for like a ride or a walk or whatever it is, like I'm doing it like it, and it's really helped. Even like on days where like the weather is like shitty, whether it's rainy or frigid. Um, as much as I don't want to go out and do it, like once I get out, like I'm like, oh, okay, I feel good. Like let's get back into it, or whatever. Um, just recently I was in the middle of an edit. Excuse me, spent like 4 or 5 hours just working on it. It's getting annoyed. Like I know right before we started, the podcast, we're talking about, using AI as a tool or whatever. And like, even with that, like it's still, I'm like, just going through the motions, trying to cut down footage and find selects and do all this, all the shit that you do when you're editing, that I'm like, I need a break. Like fucking jumped on the trainer, sweated a little bit, got some exercise, took a shower, and fucking jumped right back into it. And I'm like, okay, now I was able to grind out like another 5 6 hours, but like I didn't even really think about it, and like it allowed me to kind of
Way more in your flow.
yeah, 100%. Like it's
I don't know if it's yeah, like the like being able to just have that rush of adrenaline, or your body's just not firing that like, hey, like yeah, we're ready to work, let's do something. Like it's allowed me to do that. Like even before I was having really bad like back problems, where like it was affecting like my like lower back, like my hips, like my sciatica was getting really bad, and like literally it all went away once I started riding every day, whether it's outdoors, on a trainer, mountain biking, and running. So like literally doing some kind of form of physical activity, I literally do not like get any flare-ups or anything. So like on days, if I go 2 3 days where I don't do anything, or I'm literally just laying on bed or like laying on the couch for any extended period of time, like my hips get tight, my back starts hurting, and I'm like, oh fuck, I need to go do something. um and like even now, like these last few months, I've been definitely a lot more intentional in being active and just staying ahead of like that pain or like that discomfort. It's not really pain, just it's just more like annoying discomfort, but like it makes it uncomfortable if I'm sitting down too long and then like my fucking leg goes numb or whatever. So that's one of the reasons why like even I'm like, I need to walk, run, do some kind of physical activity regardless of the weather, and fucking do it. Because I mean, if you go out for a run, you just layer up, and you eventually warm up and go do that. So it's been like literally an important part of like my life, and like it's vital to my well-being, because otherwise like I just get irritable and super uncomfortable, pissed off.
That's kind of how I felt lately, and I haven't realized this, and maybe it's just directly due to me being less physically active. Like, because I used to be I would go to the gym nearly every single day. I would be running like 5Ks all the time. Like it would be like a pretty, like that was a daily, like regular day for me. And then what happened is like a summer and a half ago, so like not last summer, but the summer before that, as I was running, and I pushed myself harder than I ever had with my friend. And we were running like, it was like a 5 mile run. I'd never done that before. And I don't know what it was, but I think I had a wart on my foot at the time, and I was like trying to avoid stepping on it.
Yeah.
And I think that like was causing me to run in a weird way. And ever since that run, I think that gave me plantar fasciitis. So I haven't really wanted to run since then. And then that knee thing that happened last summer, like really also like messed with my ability. And okay, so I've had like 3 kind of like relatively big injuries. As I hurt my shoulder on a skateboard, and then like tore my whatever joint connects that. I forget what it's called, but like made it hard for me to like lift upper body for a year. And then I messed up my knee, and that made me hard for me to do any kind of physical activity. So I've been really kind of stagnant and like not doing anything. And that might have been like the most like physical exercise I've gotten in a while. Like I'll still go to the gym, but it's like I won't like push myself very hard because like I don't want to like hurt myself.
Yeah, it's great, bro. Like you were crushing it. Like it's like I would think like that, sure, you probably don't ride as much, but like, hey, you were, it's funny because like there was after a while, like I'm like, okay, like I can push it a little bit more, and and I feel like usually on these rides I'm like more paying attention to make sure that you're not fucking, falling behind or like sliding down the hill or whatever,
Right.
fucking crashing out. That I'm like, okay, but like, no, there was a couple of sections you're like, okay, like, oh, we can push it, or
we got to a point where you're just kind of cruising.
yeah,
for a
yeah,
while.
and it's funny because then you're like, oh yeah, this is fun, like yeah, because yeah, we just got it, we got into a groove and we literally just cruising.
Oh yeah, no,
So-
that was so good.
It's yeah, I mean, there's something to be said, or even bro, like even like getting sunlight, like
I think that being outside, like because like I still go to the gym, but I don't feel like as good as I feel like this. It's like just fresh air, like working out, like being a little bit focused on something that's kind of hard to do. It's similar to slacklining almost, where you have to be very like you have to be locked in while you're on it, or else
Yeah.
you're gonna fall. And you're gonna hurt
yeah,
yourself.
for sure. Like it's man. Like even at home, on days when I'm at home, like I have to like open up the windows and like, or even just like if I let the dogs out, like I'll just hang out in the backyard and just like watch them because, like just like soak in literally some.
Outside.
Yeah, I can't. Like there's I don't know. I'm trying to like get ahead of like that seasonal depression.
Winter's so hard in Columbus because it makes it so hard to be outside. It's like
It's and like honestly, I feel like by this time, usually around by this time, I'm already like knee deep in it, and like I honestly haven't really had enough time to like think about it.
that's where I've been. I've been too busy to like even be like, oh, it's shitty outside. I've just been like, oh my god, I'm so busy.
But yeah, like like once November hits, I hate, like I really dislike. Yeah, it's 4:30. You're like it's dark. I mean, even right now, it's like.
Yeah, it's like
It's like
o'clock.
it's 2:40 and
Going
it feels like it's already it's about to get dark any minute now. So it's I'm glad that we were able to come out, man. Like I can't thank you enough. Like if you ever want to go out like on a ride or whatever, like
Oh, I'll be hitting you up.
especially like in the like when it's warmer, like it's perfect. It's
Imagine like 65. It's just like dry outside. Like what a treat.
it makes it fun, and like honestly, like there's days where like there's like I just want to grind and just ride fast or whatever, but there's other times where we're just out chilling, kind of like how we did today. We just stop a couple times, we just chat, whatever, chop it up. If I'm doing like a long day, like I'll just bring a bag and like I'll pack like sandwiches, snacks or whatever, and just
That would be
chill,
so
have
fun.
a picnic.
Just cruise around, just stop wherever. Especially if you're like, I'm sure there's a lot of like nature stuff, or if you just start traveling around the country, that like you could just go on like a long 10-mile, 20-mile ride. And
Yeah, for bro.
see
So
some
like
different places.
ideal situation for the podcast, I see myself literally traveling wherever around the country.
Wherever a cool trail is.
Find a trail nearby. One thing I've realized is that there are trail systems pretty much everywhere, regardless of whether it's
Bikers everywhere. People make them.
yeah, they'll make them regardless, even if it's like in the middle of Kansas, in the fucking plains or whatever. Like you'll find some mountain bike trails, off-road trails. So like ideally, I want to be able to, I don't know. One of the cool things about like knowing people online is that they're fucking scattered all over. So one of my goals is eventually to just take this, like be mobile with this and like just pull up on somebody
That'd
and
be so much fun if it's just become your full-time job. You just get a couple sponsors, and then your life is just riding around. And
it's funny because like when I started the podcast, I just started doing it just for like fun, and like I didn't think about it being like, oh, this could be like my thing, and like this is something like I can make my livelihood from it. And like even doing this even with like all the technical challenges or whatever that you already have from just having a podcast, and then adding this other like outdoors element to it, I'm like, no, I can see myself doing this because we're literally like doing something that I enjoy, and I like, just talking to people. So like, fucking, this is
I'm sure so many people would throw a bunch of money at this.
Oh,
That's just sweet. I love that.
It's funny because like before, like I used to think about like, even opportunities like that, you would think like, oh, who's gonna care about this, or how am I gonna get a sponsor for like a Johnny podcast? But like, no, bro, like literally, there's like bike shops, manufacturers, brands, all there's
Right.
people that
Everybody's got
like
a ton of money. They just want to like add to their branding.
so like eventually like I can see myself kind of doing that, and or even incorporating other elements, because one of the things that like interests me too, and kind of goes back to why I started a podcast, and was to like have those conversations with people, and just to kind of get a POV on how they tackle challenges and how they overcome things. What if like I wouldn't even be opposed to like experiencing whatever hobby or whatever thing that person does that helps them kind of overcome creative block or challenges and things like that. Like I'm for me, I really get I'm cool with like trying new things, and I have I'm pretty open-minded like that like I wouldn't mind.
That'd be so much fun if that was just what it was. It's like, all right, I'm just gonna try like, and then you're just doing all these like side missions.
Yeah, I mean that's literally what it
That's
is.
like what
Like
life's all about. I
like,
love that kind of stuff.
I like ideal situation, that's like kind of what I'm doing, whether it's fucking rock climbing or fucking cooking, fishing, whatever it is. Like I want to dabble in a little bit of things. So I don't know, I think it's I never really thought about it that way before, but like now it's opened my eyes to like what it could be.
Oh, that sounds like a dream. Like just getting paid to just go do like a bunch of like just random cool things. It's like, all right, I'm just gonna go meet people and try things that they love.
And like, but I think the most fulfilling thing, and like the biggest, like, I guess, eye-opening thing has been that I'm doing this for myself, right? And like not necessarily like producing a podcast or whatever for a client. That it's, I don't know, you get a different kind of fulfillment for it, like
100%.
And it's, I don't know, it's really like when I'm like, oh yeah, like I can actually like do this, right, and like use all these skills and all this.
Out.
Yeah, I think you could still, obviously you can get burnt out with anything, but like it's less likely.
It's just so much easier to go at it because you're just excited about it. Like when it's your own thing, it's like, I want to do this. I don't like need to do this. I'm doing it because I want. It's a different dynamic.
Did you have like an experience like that? Like I know like recently you did like the whole like 100-day challenge. Like, well, talk to me about that. Like, what was that like?
I think I noticed the exact same thing. Is because it was for me that it made it possible. And I wouldn't have been able to do that for somebody else. I wouldn't have cared enough to do that. You couldn't have paid me enough money to like get up at 8 p.m. every single day when I hadn't made a video and drag my ass to the studio and film a video and edit it and post it by like 11 o'clock. Like you couldn't have paid me to care about that.
For a listener, can you kind of go over like what was the challenge?
It was just that, like, on top of having like your day-to-day life, like, because I was still doing client work, so I was still doing like all my studio rentals, like my living, and like honestly during this I went on like 3 different work trips to like different places, and it was like so overwhelming to have all of that on my plate, and then to also have like 1 video every single day, shot, edited, filmed. Like that is an enormous amount of work on top of everything I already do, and if I had to do that for somebody else, like I would have just gotten pissed off. I would have just been like, I have to do this. Like I have to like do this work. Like I'm so depressed. Like, oh, like I just don't have it in me. But because it was for me, like I was able to, like I just didn't feel that way about it. Like I was excited to do it every time. Like, and it was like, I didn't want to do it. There was times where I was like, I don't want to get out of my house and I don't really want to go film, but like I am excited to like create something. I'm excited to like, every single time when I posted that video, I would rewatch my video like 30 times.
That's
and like,
awesome.
I don't know, like, cause I was just like so in love with it. And I would always start to the point where I was like, I hate this. Like, I don't want to do it. Like, not that I hate it, but like, I didn't feel inspired. I'm like, I don't have any ideas. Like, I don't have like it seemed so far to the finish line every day to get that video done. But when it was like the hardest times, I would just start going through the motions. I would just set up the tripod. I would put the camera on the tripod. I would like just come up with like some kind of random idea, like no matter what it was. It'd be like, all right, I'm going to show off this light. I'm going to show off this. Like I'm going to compare 3 things. And then you just like set it up. And then I would, all the time where like I'm not really like super hyped on it, but every single time, like in the last 50% of it, I would just become excited because I'd been in it and I'd like started doing it, and then I'd like film this stuff. And sometimes it wasn't until like the 75 or like the 90% mark of when I was done with the video that I'm like, even like, oh, like, all right, I've got it. But every single time, like I would just start editing the video, and a lot of times I'd have a video where I'm like, this video sucks. Like I filmed everything for it, and like there's no way I can use this video. This came out blurry, and this did this, and like I'm gonna have to refilm the entire fucking thing. It's 10 p.m. And then I'm like, no, you don't have to refilm it. Just edit the video. And I'd just get in there and I'd start chopping some things up and I'd put it all together. I'm like, oh, that's kind of like, oh, like I never thought it would turn out that nice. So that was like the biggest lesson I learned, was that like it always seemed so hard to make those videos, but like I can do it. Like if I just set my mind to it and like just do it, go through the motions, shoot the video, put it in the editing software, start editing, add a sound, like even if it doesn't seem like it's going to come into anything, every single time it did. And some of the most viral videos or the most like successful videos I posted came out of me being like, I'm just going to do something. Like I don't have any inspiration at all. I'm just going to like, maybe even I'll just be lazy and just reuse footage that I've already shot. And I got a video with 8.3 million views, and that came from, I had already shot footage, and I was like the end of the day one day, and it was like 8 p.m. and I'm like, I'm so tired. Like I do not want to go to the studio and film. I'm like, all right, how do I get this done? I'm like, all right, well maybe I have like some footage that like I've already shot that I could repurpose into like a new style or a new something else. So I just went through and looked at all my footage, and I'm like, oh, I actually have like a lot of footage. I've shot everything for the past 60 days. So, and I just took like 3 different comparison videos that were showing like different camera settings. And then I compiled those all into just one video and made everything a lot smaller. And that just had a lot of value to it. And I just put like a kind of a trending audio on it. Took me like 45 minutes to make the whole video.
Wow.
So it was probably one of the shortest start to finish videos that I had. And there's by far, like, it got 10 times more traction than anything else I've ever posted in my life.
Yeah, it's crazy how that works sometimes, where I feel like even with the podcast, like when I restarted this season, I still had an episode that I never aired. And like when I went on that hiatus, I kind of, not that I was upset that like one of the cameras cut out at the end of it, and then it was like one of the batteries died, and then like I started recording it again, but then it was like out of focus,
right?
And I'm like, fuck. So there's like literally like a 30-minute like
out of focus
portion, and then so like when I edited it, I just left the other angle that I had on the camera or whatever, but like it was me talking or whatever. It was actually my camera angle, and like that I was already feeling some kind of way with the podcast, and like obviously we went over it, where like I felt like it was not original, and it was kind of turning into like what everybody else was doing, and so I just didn't put out. And then like literally I've spent 2 years where I didn't put out a podcast episode. It took about a year for me to even think about this format, or even when I started this format, like the first few episodes I recorded them last summer.
Really?
Like, so over a year ago. And for the similar reason, like, oh, I didn't, because I was trying something new. It didn't look how I wanted, or, whatever. Some stupid reason that I gave myself as to like why it wasn't good enough. Then I started sharing it with people, and they're like, oh yeah, this is actually really cool. Like, oh, this I can see this working out or whatever. And then that episode that I literally sat on for 2 years, I put it out a couple weeks ago, and fucking I've had like a handful of people, wow, this is like one of the best episodes that I've listened to.
Really?
Yeah. And like I went back and re-listened to the episode, and I'm like, wow, this is actually like a really good episode. And like I'm like fucking like kicking myself. I'm like, bro, like fucking you're a dumbass, because you're just like feeling some kind of way about this or whatever, and like not necessarily like like you're in your head for no fucking reason, because
no fucking reason. You're like, what will people think? You're like, people aren't gonna like it. People are gonna hate this. And then like, yeah, and it just makes me wonder how many things in my life that if I wouldn't have second guessed myself, like where I'd be. Because like I feel like I've always been myself, and I've always like, looking back on like my old stuff that I create, like I'm always like, man, that's so cool. Like I'm always like hyped on myself. I'm like, always like,
sure.
oh, like I was doing that. And I can so vividly remember being 20 years old and having all of these ideas and all these things I wanted to do, and just being like, no, I'm not gonna like put that out. Like, and I took so many photos when I was like really young, and like so many videos, and I just like wouldn't put it out. I'm like, I'm not gonna post that on my Instagram. And like I just do feel like if I like would have been able to get over that whatever it was that was telling me not to do that, that like I would have like already been like further down the road of who I am already. And that deciding to do that 100-day challenge, like speed boosted me so far down the road of who I want to be. And it was like it goes to show it's like the life you want to live is on the other side of like your comfort zone. And it's like, I've always known I wanted to do that stuff, but it always is hard. Like, it's uncomfortable to get out.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable to like make yourself do a lot of work, but like, it's so much more gratifying to get out and do it and post it, even though like that 100-day challenge was like really challenging. Like, I wouldn't have never not done that. And it's the same thing for like anything I feel like that's hard, like traveling or even coming to do this mountain biking thing. It's like so easy to get caught up in the idea of like, oh, like we're gonna have to set everything up and it's gonna be like cold, and what if the trails are like rainy and like we slip off, like should we not do it? And it's like so easy to be like, like maybe we should just reschedule, like maybe we should do another day.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that, because that literally that's
this day never would have happened again.
Yeah, this is literally what like happened, with us. Like, I was kind of checking in with you yesterday. I'm like, hey, I don't know if the trails were pretty bad, but I just said I because I'm like in this new like mindset that like I'm like, fuck it, let's like I actually think I actually texted him like, nah, fuck it, let's just do it anyways, like, because
just do stuff.
Otherwise, yeah, we're probably it's gonna be spring and we're gonna be trying to do it again. And so I'm really grateful that we made it happen, because I've had a really good time. And like, honestly, I initially thought that it was just gonna be like a 2-hour thing, and like we've been like chopping it up for like the last 4.5 hours.
I'm so glad we had like the day unfolded the way it did. This has been so fun. What was I gonna say? You just sparked something in me and I lost it. Maybe it'll come back to me.
Kind of like I was just kind of reflecting on like that. I even like us making this podcast right now, like I almost like made the audible be like, okay, like let's just not do it because it was too cold, or the weather, the trails are shitty. Like, it's, I don't know, there's definitely something to like you said, even
I remember it was I always like to ask people like how they measure success, and really, like, I feel like my definition of success is just deciding to do something and doing it. So even if it's something as small as this, like, it's like small triumphs in your day every day, where it's like if you just decide you're going to do something and then you follow through and you do it, like that will compound so quickly. Because like, and that's just exactly what it was for like those 100-day videos. It was like, I just decided one day, like there was like nothing else changed but my decision to be like, I'm gonna do this.
okay.
And after I made that decision, like it just became like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And it's like, all right, I'll just do it. And like, that was the only thing. I would have had such a mediocre last 3 months if I hadn't done that. But instead I feel like I've had like one of the most transformative times of my life, because I just decided to do something that was like a lot harder and a lot different than I've ever done, that I've always known I wanted to do. So it's just interesting how like that decision to do something harder can like lead to such a different life.
Yeah, for sure. And like, it's you hear that all the time, right? Like all these podcasts, inspirational people, like books and everything. Like you hear that, but it's just something. Like, you can hear things a million times, but until like you experience it yourself, it never really like, it doesn't hit the same way.
Right.
And like, you don't appreciate it as much. And like, yeah, like with everything, like, like we were talking earlier, the whole being more active, how it just improves your way of life, exponentially. That like, yes, people say that all the time, but until you're like actually doing it and you start to reap the benefits from it, like you don't realize like, oh wow, like I am in a much better mood. I feel a lot better, because of this one thing where you're just like moving around, being active, doing something. And like, yeah, when I'm not doing it, like I notice the difference in how I feel as compared to like when I'm actually doing it. So it's, folks, you have to do hard things. Like, even if you don't want to, like, you have to fucking do it. And like, you'll feel way better once you accomplish it. Then
it's weird how that works, because it's like you never want to do hard things and you're always like, oh, and then you don't do the hard things and then you're so depressed. And then like you do like you just yeah, it's weird how like you can have a good life if you do hard things, or you can have a shitty life if you don't do hard things.
It's like, yeah, I mean, it's gonna be shitty regardless. So like, do you want but do you want to eventually feel better, or do you want to do you want to feel shitty during it, or do you just want to feel shitty all the time?
Right.
And like, I don't know, even if as I'm getting older, like I'm not that old, but like as I'm getting older, I'm starting to like realize now the importance of that. And like, even like thinking long term, even something as little as like riding a bike, or simple as riding a bike, that literally people of all ages do. You know what, you learn to ride a bike when you're like 4 or 5 years old, whatever.
Right.
That even just something like that can transform like your way of life, like in your 60s. Like I've seen people who have been active most of their lives, and now as they get into like their older years, 50s, 60s, 70s, the people that were active throughout the most entirety of their life are in a much better position than somebody who was not.
100%. I've seen that so firsthand. Like I said, the person I was supposed to meet today, they're like in their 90s and they never stopped. Like they've just always been doing something. Their thing is pottery, and they just always do pottery. But I've also had like a grandma who died at like 75 and was in like just such terrible condition like when she died, because she just stopped. Like she stopped, like once you stop, you die.
Yeah, like I told you about like my grandfather, like he's in his 90s, and like I've asked him like, hey, why don't you come live closer to family, whatever. He's like, yeah, because he literally says, yeah, man, if you take me out of like what my day to day and what I've like figured out, like I'm just gonna literally wither and fucking die.
Literally, yeah. It's crazy how that works with people.
So like, and and it's like all this to say that there's definitely a lot to be gained from just breaking out and like trying new things and doing something different.
Well, I feel like the problem is that too is most people stop trying new things when they're like 20.
It's crazy to think about, right? Because like
you don't wonder everyone's so depressed. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what, and like people act like it's crazy. They're like, you went and cooked a meal and like travel all these places and like act like the life I live is crazy. And I'm like, I hate the life I live. I don't do nearly enough stuff. Like, and like, especially the past, like, I used to feel like I was on it. Like, there was a point where I had full freedom and I would just do side missions every day. And that's what I want to get back to. And that's what I realized I really love. I love experiencing new things, new cultures. I love traveling. I love cooking. I love tasting new flavors. And like, that's what it is to live. And it's to do something you haven't done before, or else you're just doing the same thing every day and you're not living. Like, you're just running on autopilot. That's how I've kind of felt this year, as it's been a little bit of an autopilot year.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need that stuff to kind of like be able to like do something enough to have it be something. But I think I'm at the point where I'm ready to get out of autopilot and start living again.
Yeah, it's interesting because like even with relaunching the podcast, that's kind of where I've been, because I feel like even like I think it was maybe like around the time whenever we last recorded the episode. It's about a little over 2 years ago. Like shortly after that, like I already felt like I was kind of going into like this downward spiral of like, I don't want to say negativity, but I just wasn't on it or wasn't feeling it with everything that I feel that I've took like a 2-year hiatus on everything, on like social life, work, social media, whatever, everything. And like in that time, like I started cycling, did a whole bunch of stuff at home. I never really was like a handy person, and like I've been doing shit around the house literally for the last 2 years, like little random projects that like if you would have asked me 3 years ago if I would have like fucking
Could do that,
remodeled the bathroom or replace flooring or do shit like that, like would have never I would have been like, fuck no. Like I would just pay somebody to do it or have somebody come help me. But like even just like doing stuff like that while not necessarily like letting everybody know what I was doing, like I was trying things and doing things that I guess an older version of myself would never really been like
building
open
your
to.
character stats.
Yeah, I mean that's one way to put it. And like it's interesting because like looking back now, I think that all of that is kind of like builds you up to who you are now. And like I don't know, it's I boil it down to just having like this, like once it hits you and like it clicks that like there's a lot to be gained from like trying things and like doing hard things, that it's there's so many quotes on that. Like I can't think of anything now, but like, yeah, literally like everything you want is on that other side of everything that you're trying to like avoid.
Right.
Like literally.
Exactly. It's so interesting.
It's like and like I think about that, and it's like it's weird how you don't really think about that when you're trying to avoid everything, but then once like you climb that wall, yeah, you realize like, oh wow, like it's not that bad, or hey,
and this is so much better now.
like I tell you, even with like this whole like cycling thing, like even just something as simple as that, like riding a trail, like I remember when I first started, like I would literally feel like I was dying, bro. Like my body, like I would be like, once I get home and like chilling, like I'd be shaking and like fucking shivering, and like my body would get hot. Like I think like my body was like, bro, like what the fuck are you doing? Like we have never done anything like this before. And like literally I would like this very trail that we just rode, like I would ride it and like I would spend like the next 2 days like in pain, sore as shit. And like now I'm like, oh yeah, it's just like a quick loop.
Right.
Like,
Used to the light ride.
and like it's you, when you're going through all that shit, like you don't think about it or whatever. Like I gave you like that when I was telling you earlier, like even like little things when when I'm riding with my son, like early on he would have to wait for me for like 15 minutes somewhere because I'm like just dragging along, like barely making it through. He's just cruising by or whatever. That like now recently we go on rides and he's like about to take a break. He was like, oh shit, you're here already? Okay, well let's keep going, and like for me, like it's very fulfilling seeing that like I have something that I can compare to, that is like kind of like a marker of like, hey, this is where you were before and this is where you are now, and like it gives me more hope to like how much better it could be in the future. Or like I told her, like I want to try to dabble into like racing now, and like sure I'm not gonna win anything, but even just the idea of like, oh, a couple years ago I could barely like ride this like on a normal day, and like now I'm gonna try like to ride hard and like try to be fast with it or whatever. Like it's really opened my mind to like be open to like just accepting and like trying new things.
Yeah, it's interesting how like staying consistent with something, like you said, doesn't seem like it ever pays off in the short term. Like when you said you started riding and people used to always like comment on your weight, and then like now it's the opposite, that people like do that, but you don't ever notice that like how just consistency compounds and turns into like introducing you into this person that you've never been able to do, that's able to kind of like achieve these things you've never been able to achieve, where like it doesn't seem like it ever is going to do that. Like it never seems like you're like, okay, like because I went on this bike ride today, I'm going to be able to like race now. Like you're like, okay, no way. Like it didn't really do anything.
Right.
But it does. And like consistently doing it, like for me, it's like, okay, like I made one video on Instagram. Like that's not going to do anything for me. And it did. Making 100 videos on Instagram, I've got people who like I've always like dreamed of like reaching out to me like to like do stuff for them. And it's like it kind of like just staying consistent like makes small changes every day that turn into really big changes that end up being like massive changes that end up just completely transforming you and who you are. And it's like so fun to watch, even like from like when I've known you, like the last time we did this podcast, you seem like such a different person. And because it's like doing all of these things, like you get experience from trying hard things that you've never done, and that also transforms you into like the person that you get to be, and then also how you get to speak from like your life. So like it's just fun to like, I'm excited to hear that you've been like trying new things, like remodeling your bathroom.
Yeah,
like,
bro,
I've
like
done stuff like that, and it seemed really fucking hard.
It is.
But once you do it, you're like, oh, I can do this. I can do hard things. And then it's like, oh, I can have this life I want. And you're like, okay, well, like this is really hard to get there, but I can do that. And you're like, all right, let's just set out. And then you start like, whereas before it seemed impossible.
Yeah, for sure.
I can't do that.
I
couldn't do that. There's no way.
Yeah, it's like those small wins, like those.
It's not very far off from where I am now.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's those small wins are like as I would call it, like invisible progress, because it really is like, yeah, it really is invisible because you don't notice it,
It
until
seems like your day to day.
It's been a game changer for me, and like I think what I want to be able to, like, if I can like do something for other people, is to like help people see that, like, yes, like that's like there's something to be had from that, whatever it is for you. Like, could be anything, but like there's definitely uh it can set off, like, it can trigger something in you to like want to achieve these goals or do these things that you otherwise would never have thought like you'd be doing. Because like honestly, man, like, yeah, I would probably, like you said, even like back when we last talked, I think I would not have, if you would have told me that then and there that like I'd be having the conversation that we're having now, or having done all the shit that I've done, like I'd be like, nah,
Yeah, right. That's not happening.
it's not happening. So it's like it's crazy how, like, looking back on it now, it's like, oh wow, like there's been a lot of growth, right, that otherwise you never really notice. So it's, I don't know, man, it's I want to be able to like share that more with people, and like, yeah, even just have conversations, and like even I think even just taking people out on these rides, it's cool because people, I think most of the guests that I would have on, or people that I want to talk to, they already appreciate those things. But I think it could, I think from my experience so far, it's like it kind of like reignites something, whether, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to go out mountain biking now, but like you're going to have like, oh man, like that was really cool and like I enjoyed it, but like what else can I do?
Right. Well, I feel like already, yeah, it definitely has reminded me how good it feels to be like, to work really hard, like to like get really kind of sweaty and out of breath. I've kind of forgotten about that. Like I forgot about this feeling, and it feels so good. It's like so like alive, and like I could go like jump and run and swing my arms around.
Like it's crazy because it's been a few hours now, and like I'm still like very loose and like limber. Like I feel good, man.
It's like a runner's high or something.
I mean, it's very comparable to that, and like, it really is. And like I think that accomplishing things gives you that feeling, like, whatever dopamine rush, whatever you want to call it, like it's like that's when you're able to like do these like little things, like that's yeah, it feels good. And like that's how I approach it now, is like, even I have like all these millions of things that I want to try and do, and like I feel that I would always get overwhelmed in trying to like accomplish it or do it, that like now it's, yes, I understand having like this like end goal, and like, yes, I want to accomplish all these things, but now I feel like I understand that literally all of the work is in those like little steps in between. So now I can just, focus on like the little smaller steps, because eventually I'll get to like wherever it is that, whatever it is that I'm trying to accomplish. So that's kind of like what I'm on right now. And like, I hope that I can continue doing that. Like, obviously I know it's not always easy, but it now I have something to think about whenever I do kind of start to revert back, or start, to start to get faced with like obstacles, that like I can be like, okay, this is not permanent, and this is just, whatever it is challenging right now, and we just fucking make it work. Like even the fucking bikes, right?
Exactly.
The bikes weren't working, and we've been talking for like about an hour now, and like
I don't think anyone will even know that, like, well, I mean, they can see the phone, but like no one's gonna be like, audio quality, man.
Well, we'll find out.
You guys should have just waited. We'll find out. We'll see. But I got faith.
But regardless, like even if that doesn't turn out the way it is, like I'm grateful that we just had this conversation, and like,
yeah,
I'm gonna feel the same way regardless. But I hope that everyone else, our listeners, can feel the same. So I guess we can kind of wrap it up with that. Like, what do you?
If the audio quality isn't that great, it's a great lesson for next time, and then we'll doing this will
100%
influence the next time.
I think if anything, that's probably
better.
I think that's that's another thing too. Like even with like being able to just welcome the failures and accept them and be like, okay, it is what it is. Like, okay, well, I won't do that next time.
Right.
Like that's another thing that like I've, you're able to like learn and pick up. So I guess with that being said, as we wrap up, is there anything, what do you have going on in the future? What's Tucker? What's Good Life Studios? Anything you want to plug or anything like that to wrap it up?
Yeah, I'm changing the way that I'm moving forward in my life, and I think that this podcast is on brand with that. is I want to take more time to do stuff that I love, and I want to make my life more aligned with the exact dream life that I want to live, and I want to be a lot more intentional about what I'm actually doing on a day-to-day basis, especially for my work. So I want to be more intentional about who I have as clients. I want to be more intentional about what I'm actually doing on a day-to-day, and instead of making money my like driving factor of like how I need to grow my business, I want to grow my business in the sense that I'm growing into something that I'm really going to enjoy doing the rest of my life, and that is going to like fulfill my wildest dreams. So instead of like just doing stuff because it's going to make me money, such as podcasting and offers like that I don't really feel like add value to my life, I want to really work with people who I feel connected with and who I feel are kind of like on the same page as me and like understand things the same way that I understand them, which would be that like life is all about this. Like life is about like being present and being connected and like doing what you want to do and like enjoying it, enjoying the company of others, and enjoying the hardships of it, and like just being present for it and like going through it. So like I want to quit making fluff stuff, and I want to just do stuff that inspires people to do that exactly. Is just live their life and be a little happier, and maybe think that like, you know, realize that there's not actually as much going on in real life as there is in your head.
Yeah.
And that most of the times the difference between a good day and a bad day is your decision to make it that way.
That is beautiful and a perfect way to end it. So Tucker, thank you for coming on. Thank you for going on the ride with me, and let's do it again.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm down anytime. Let me know.
Just make it happen. All right.
do it.
Peace, everybody.
Peace.